I'm Mike Fisher and I've been here for just short of 30 years. It started out as a bare field. I knew I was going to grow organic veg. Had a full-time job for the first 5 years to get started. But then VegBox came along and that was great because that gave us a structure to what we were doing. So in '94 we delivered, I think, 7 veg boxes the first week in July '94, and then it built up very rapidly from there. And that's been our mainstay ever since. I've dabbled with wholesale of tunnel crops the last 5 years or so, but I'm back just concentrating on veg boxes this year. We got 5 hectares, 12.5 acres on a light loam, lots of chalk. Some of it's 6 or 7 inches from the surface even, 30 inches down, further down the field. So it drains well. Very high pH, we're running around 7.8, whatever we do, it only gets higher rather than lower. And over the years there's been quite a change in the soil. Organic matter levels are up, so we're up around 9 to 10% in the fields, and probably getting too high, around 20% in the tunnels. So we're actually not applied any compost on the fields for the last 5 years, just relied on green manures, and have stopped putting compost in the tunnels for the last couple of years as well. Okay, this field has got a winter cover crop in it, the radish, mustard, vetch, red clover, crimson clover rather, and so on. This went in around the 20th of August, which is fairly optimal. Usually we're later September, right up to late September, and it's slower growing. This year it went in with really high soil temperatures, and just after 2 thunderstorms and ahead of a couple more, so it was ideal conditions to get established. So we're now looking at 2 months later, and it's grown like this. This has had a lay in it recently, so there's a bit of fertility carried over from that, no doubt. So I think it's a combination of optimal timing and fertility already in the soil as it's grown quite like this. I've never seen one go quite this fast. This is going in ahead of next year's leeks, so we've got time to flail it and prepare leek beds in the spring. Being on light land here with a slope towards the east, so we get plenty of morning sun. The ground does dry out in the spring, so we can get onto things early, but this one we'll leave it in for a while because we won't be planting until May and June in these beds. The first crop I ever put in this farm was forage rye as a winter cover crop, so I've always wanted to use green manures for either increasing organic matter and soil life as well as fertility. We started out using 2-year red clover leys, and then now whenever I can find space I like to put a new Moreton-in-Marsh ley in because I like the deep rooting ingredients of that, the sandfoin and the lucerne and the chicory. I feel that brings up minerals from deeper down. So the soil organic matter in the fields around the farm is between 8 and 9%, 8 and 10% now. It started out reasonable. The first soil analysis we did was already showing 5%, but that might have been because it had just come out of cereals and had the stubble ploughed in when it was tested. So we weren't starting from very, very low levels. We always had a good organic matter in this soil. And then we'll get green manures over the years have helped tremendously with that. And I think also they're helping us with moisture retention as well. So yeah, for summer vegetable crops, they're very important from that point of view as well. So this is the winter cover crop again, but this one was sown in early September. Went into good conditions, but it's just that difference between the 20th of August and 3 weeks later really. It's given huge cover. I mean, we tend to overseed. We tend to, with these types of cover crops, use double seed rate. The theory being that we get good coverage and smother all our annual veg weeds, which having been growing intensive veg for 30 years can be an issue at times. So I feel it's worth the extra cost, and it works for us. This crop will stay in the ground till the spring, probably come out in late February or through March, depending on how soil conditions allow. It will get flailed off and then either ploughed or rotivated depending on soil conditions and what weed I can see and so on. So what we've got here is Phacelia and buckwheat. By this stage in the crop's life, it's the Phacelia is taking over and dominating, but it started out with the buckwheat growing fastest first. The idea of the buckwheat for us was we were part of, for the last year or two, an organic research centre project looking at buckwheat controlling couch grass. But this year, this patch I sowed quite late to get buckwheat going, I thought. So I doubled up with Phacelia as well, on the basis that we're not sure whether the buckwheat has an allopathic effect and actually stops the couch grass for that reason, or simply whether it's just smothering it out and that the buckwheat achieves the same thing. So this patch had couch grass in, but because I was a bit late, I ended up putting Phacelia as well as the buckwheat. I mean, interestingly, where the couch grass was worse, the establishment has been slower. So the couch grass has competed with the green manure in the early stage of its life, but whether the green manure is then going to manage to suppress the couch grass, we'll see in the spring. We'll have to keep faith until then. This is the first time I used the two together, but we used buckwheat on its own that seemed to have some success last year. So this is sweet corn that's been undersown with white clover and yellow trefoil. This isn't actually my crop. Alison, who's rented 2 tunnels and a bit of land from me, grew this crop. But we always like to get a bit of this undersowing in somewhere on the farm, either under the brassicas or under sweet corn. The idea being then that it just leaves, we don't end up with bare soil over winter essentially. And with the sweet corn it's great as well, because if you leave them like this over winter and we don't flail them off straight away, then the birds come into the crop, and they've got this cover on the ground as well. So this is very attractive to wild birds over the winter.